have a few particular white friends who are doing something that's making me feel a little awkward. It's not wrong and it's not bad, but it does always make me go, huh, okay. So particularly one of them is always sending me Black content. They're often sending me memes or things that they find on social media. They send me other things as well, but it's way more Black content than I'm used to from a white person, right? And it's kind of like when you went to see Get Out and you saw like those different moments where audience members were laughing at moments where you were like, now why was that funny to you? Or why did you connect with that? Or what did that mean to you? Those kinds of moments where a white person is engaging in something Black, but not necessarily coming from the same place as the Black person that they're sending it to. And you're starting to wonder, what exactly is happening here? And are you sending this to your non-Black friends, or is this just to the Black people, or is it just to me? Right? It's one of those questions that has got me starting to think about this specifically, and like, especially as we're coming up on the book, when white people have been asking about like, oh, does this mean that I can use these phrases? Can I say these things? And we're having conversations about no, right? About how the ways that you see these things or are educated by them or informed by them does not mean that they are yours to use. But also when we're thinking about social media and the things that we're sharing, starting to kind of think about, are those things like, is it weird for white people to be sending these things to Black folks? As I started talking about this with Tre'vell, the conversation started to become about digital blackface, as Tre'vell was referencing articles that have kind of discussed things adjacent to this. And it's part of the reason that we are a little bit anxious about calling it digital blackface, but it kind of feels adjacent enough to what we're talking about to be able to kind of dig into it. Tre'vell, did I explain that well enough as far as digital blackface is concerned? I would expect you to say no, because you typically would.
I mean, well, listen, I just always want to make sure that the people understand. I want to make sure that we stay grounded, in the community. But no, I think yes, you did just fine. And I should say, at the top of the show, the kind of like first like quote unquote mainstream discussion point around like digital blackface that I saw was this Teen Vogue article from I want to say it was 2017, that I'm gonna pull it up so I can get the writer's name, but it really kind of situated this idea around sort of kind of what you were talking about with your white friend, which is non-Black people engaging with Black memes, Black gifs in a way that, emphasizes perhaps certain stereotypes or expectations or understandings of particular moments in culture that have now, went beyond those specific moments and can mean various things. And so that is why I brought it up in the example that you mentioned with your white friend. As everyone knows, I have one white friend in my life, and he's always in a tenuous position. That's just, that's what we all inherited, okay? It is what it is. Y'all weren't responsible for slavery, and I'm not responsible for him constantly being in a tenuous position with me. It just is what it is. Anyway.
Wow.
Anyway, but I have other non-Black friends, right, who I have similarly been like, why are you saying that to me? Like, what you laughing at in that?
Really, for the people watching on YouTube and maybe on Instagram, it's the face that you made as you said, why you laughing at that? That really, really spoke to my spirit, more than the words even. That, why you laughing at that? I know for myself when I'm using GIFs, whether I'm in the group chat or if I'm on Twitter or on social media, whatever it is, I tend to lean in the direction of Black GIFs, right? I want to send a GIF that has a Black person on it to express a thought as much as I can, more than I tend to send GIFs with white people. Now, there are some GIFs with white people that are expressing the idea. I often use like the speechless GIF, right? Where he's like trying to say something and like just stops. And like, it's such a perfect GIF. I use it.
You used that on me last night.
I used it with you just yesterday, right? Because you had said something and I was like, okay, fine. right? And so I love that GIF, but typically I tend to use GIFs that are making an expression that I would be making or expressing a thought that I'm having. And they tend to be Black GIFs. But I also think about it with white folks, and I'm like, oh, when white folks are using Black GIFs, why does it feel different? Right? Why does it sit with me in a way that feels a little bit more awkward if they're always doing it as opposed to like if they do it sometimes? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me feel a little bit awkward when I'm getting that from a white person or from a non-Black person, more so with white people than it is with non-Black people, because I feel like
Of course,
my non-Black friends who are not white are engaged in culture in a different kind of way than I expect. I don't know. It's a very weird thing.
Sure. Okay, so then let's dive into it. Like, we're gonna do this is our complex and complicado structure for all of the OGs who are trying to figure out what the hell we are doing. So let's first start with one of the points you made was about like representation in GIF form. And I remember, well, let me first say the name of the article that I mentioned, the Teen Vogue article, is We Need to Talk About Digital Blackface in Reaction GIFs. It was written by Lauren Michelle Jackson. This is from August 2017. I remember a period in time in which it was difficult to find GIFs with Black people in them.
Yes.
And I think with certain emotions, when you search your little GIF keyboard, it still is difficult to find certain GIFs with certain emotion that evoke certain emotions with Black faces in them. And I'm sure this also, shows up with other races as well. A shout out to Jasmine Lawson, who's now doing work. She did some work for Netflix on Survival of the Thickest, Michelle DeButo's new show on Netflix. But before her time and before doing content work at Netflix, she was leading the Strong Black Lead team. And before that, she was at Giphy. Right. And her whole job at Giphy was to start diversifying, their database with GIFs of Black folks. So I say all of that to then say, when we're talking about the point around representation of Black folks in GIFs, and you highlight this occurrence with white people specifically, but also some non-Black people of using GIFs with Black people in it. In my mind, I say, if you are having to go through the same experience of searching for Black people in GIFs that I am having to go through to find those same GIFs, then you are being very intentional to find that GIF in my mind. Now, I haven't thought this all the way out, so don't hold me hostage, everybody. But in my mind, the white person, the non-Black person, perhaps is doing the exact same journey I'm doing to find that GIF. And there's a particular intentionality in that, makes an alarm of sorts go off in my head. But I think the point you made that is important here is ultimately around the frequency with which this happened. Like, is the white person in your life only using GIFs with Black people in them? To me, that might be a, slight little, wrinkle in the situation.